now that we have learned how to make gerbs, these simple charcoal gerbs, one variation on them that I'd like to explore is a creative combination of more than one gerb into one device or display. In Weingart's book, Pyrotechnics, which is one of the older books that folks in the last century have come across to guide them in making fireworks, one of the sections is exhibition fireworks, and there are many descriptions and drawings of various combinations of spinning Saxons, wheels, combined with gerbs on single devices, single set pieces, ground display pieces. So there's a lot of creative options described in this book, and we're going to explore some of them in the next couple projects, wheels and chromatropes specifically. In a book that's not available right now, but I'm trying to find a way to make available again, is a compilation made by Bill Schmidt. I think it was around 2000 he did this. It's a compilation of all the old 1900s West-Tech fireworks manuals, and he updated the manuals with a lot of computer drawn drawings, three-dimensional and two-dimensional drawings of devices. And in this book are also a lot of really nice ideas for ways to construct ground display pieces, wheel combinations, wheels combined with gerbs. And so there is, once we get into making gerbs, and gerbs with a couple different effects or several different effects, either using them in a stationary display setting or using them as wheel drivers or on wheels that are going around and around. The imagination is the only limitation on all the effects we can then make with these two gerb driver devices. And it's really quite inspiring and satisfying to explore some of these designs and make up maybe even some of our own. The first simple device I'm going to make to combine three gerbs in one. These are three of the 5 gerbs I rammed in the charcoal spark gerb making lesson. I thought we'd put 3 of them together, one firing vertically and 2 firing at a slight angle to vertical, mounted to a board that we will stake to the ground and then light all 3 at once for a W-shaped gerb display. This is a 2x6. I drew using Sharpie marker vertical lines where the center one will go, then I set the adjacent ones on an angle. I measured over 2 degrees. On this 5.5 inch wide 2x6, that ends up being an angle of 20 degrees between the upright one and the side angled one. So these are going to be fired at an angle of 20 degrees. Based on how this displays, then we could adjust that angle for more or less spread on the side gerbs. What I did then, after I drew where the sides of the gerbs were going to be, I drilled holes for tie wire ties that I'm going to mount the gerbs to the board with. The holes between the bottoms of the gerbs here, the tie wires can go through one single hole in those locations. The other holes are in pairs. And the wire I'm using to attach the gerbs is normally found in the concrete rebar aisle of a Home Depot or Lowe's or a similar hardware, lumber, building supplies type store. This is 18 gauge tie wire. Comes in a roll like this. It's typically pretty oily to keep it from rusting, and it's a soft iron wire that bends easily and holds its shape but doesn't break easily. So I'm using pieces of this. I have cut U's out of the wire, put them through the holes, and then I've twisted them on the back of the board with a pair of vice grips. with one of the tubes in place when I did that, to get them pretty snug, but not completely snug yet. So once I complete the next step with this board, I'll be able to put the gerbs into the support, and I'll tighten up the wires from behind to hold them in place nice and snugly. The advantage of wire is it doesn't burn and it doesn't melt. String or plastic cable ties might burn or melt and release the devices prematurely as the device is displaying. Tie wire won't do that. But one disadvantage to a wood support like this, whether it's a lance set piece frame or whether it's a support like this or even a wheel frame, is that often enough light is given off by the individual component devices that this will show up. And it's not very attractive for the crowd to be seeing a chunk of wood out there along with the gerb display. I really just want to have the gerb display stand out on its own. So I'm going to take this outside and spray paint it black to hide it at night when this is displaying. And then when that's dry, I'll actually mount the gerbs to it. Well, my spray can of black paint had been sitting around for a couple years and wouldn't spray, but I had some brown, pretty dark brown primer. So I just sprayed this. I just wanted to get it darkened up from the white wood that it was. I think this will hide pretty well out there in the dark while the gerbs are burning. So now I want to mount my gerbs to the support. These don't have to be super tight, just tight enough to keep the gerbs from slipping out of the board during handling and while it's displaying. But it's not like the gerbs, which are going to be thrusting downward toward the ground, are going to go anywhere. The real technique I want to demonstrate in this project is fusing items like this together, chaining devices on a wheel or a girondola. Devices have to be chained together so they ignite all at once. All of these have the embedded black match fusing exposed, sticking out of the nozzles of the three gerbs. I want to figure out how long to cut a pipe so it comes up, goes over, and will go back down to the top of each nozzle. And that's that long there. Looks like I can get, oh nice, cuts one of my 24 inches of pipe right in half. Now what I want to do is stick one piece of black match down in there, sticking out of that pipe about an inch at each end. That sticking out 1 inch will go down into the nozzle of each gerb, lapping alongside the embedded black match that's in there for very positive ignition. Then I'm going to stick my second piece of black match in there. This one is just to go from one end of the pipe to the other so that when I tie around the pipe I don't choke off the fire. Now I'll stick that down in there, down into the nozzle of that first one, and I'll put a clove hitch around that. Let's make sure I'm getting the top of that fuse in the picture. I think I'll raise it just a fuzz. So I've got the first end of that fusing tied into the first, actually that's going to be the last gerb to ignite. Bring that over. Now I want to stick this in so the match sticking out that 1 inch, a little more than 1 inch right now, laps down alongside that embedded match in there. Shove that down in as far as it will go. And then I'll do the same thing with this second pipe. This, naturally, this can't go down in the nozzle very easily. There's already 2 pieces of match going down in the nozzle, so my interest is in getting all this down in there, right to the top of the nozzle where all that black match is right together, right in that location. Shove it down in there as far as it will go, and I'll tie that nosing. Now you can see why we learned to tie clove hitches in our sleep. Everything's shoved down in there real good. The knot is above all the black match and is around where the match pipes are, holding all that in there really good and tight. It can be tempting to do these kind of connections just by fusing into a nosing and then wrapping some masking tape or duct tape or silver or aluminum foil duct tape around that location. When this, you can see, you saw in the video of the gerb construction where this assembly ignited, blows everything apart under great pressure. If this was just taped, sometimes it can actually blow the fusing out of there, blow the quick match pipe out of there, and not ignite what it's supposed to ignite. A tie like this is a much more secure mechanical connection that can't blow open easily and allow the fuse to escape out of that connection. I think what I'm going to do is make an ignition fuse here first and actually stick that down into the that first nozzle. I'm going to put that in there. I want it to come out to about here. I want to cut a pipe 1 inch shorter than that. I want to shove this down alongside the fuse embedded match in that first gerb. Now I'll put that match pipe slid down over it, right down to the top of the nozzle. And now I will put this fuse and pipe shoved way down to the top of the nozzle as well, and tie that connection good and tight. Once again, high enough to go around both pipes, tying everything together there real well. You can imagine when this first fuse goes in there and lights. This whole, what we might call a bucket, this whole bucket nosing inflates with hot gases and flame, lights anything within its vicinity in a split second, and then blows open. Now I can stick a visco ignition fuse in the end of that. Cover the end of that black match with a little tape, and it'll be ready to go out. Fire up when it gets dark. What I will do to secure this out there in the lawn for firing is I'll put a short wood stake front and back on this end and front and back on that end. That way that can't tip one way or the other. The gerbs are going to be forcing it straight down, so it's not going to try to move sideways, and that'll be a good solid erection out there. Forget I just said that. That'll be a good solid assembly out there. Alright, I'm going to put my black match away. And that is a ganged together W fan shaped gerb construction that will fire up and video later on.